Okay, so getting to no place left in Kansas City, or seeing our city saturated with the gospel and reached with the saving knowledge of the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's where we want to be, and we believe to do that we need disciple-making movements, of course, but basically disciples who will make disciples who will make disciples, or spiritual multiplication. So here's the setup. Our city needs to be reached for Christ. Has 2.2 million people in Kansas City, in the greater Kansas City area. Now this breaks down into two more numbers, namely 1.76 million, so 1.76 million who are far from God, and then that would leave about 440,000 who are professing believers. Now, on this note, we believe from survey research that 98% of these in the church are not sharing their faith. They do not share. So that is something that we're going to have to deal with, and ultimately to change. But the good news is you've got a potential army of laborers right here. Now, how many do we need before we get back to that? Well, we believe that we need 10% of our total population excited about the gospel. So 10% is going to be somewhere 220,000 people, not just sharing their faith, not just sharing the gospel, but disciples who are multiplying spiritually. So disciples who are making disciples, hence disciple-making movements. So 220,000 army of laborers. You pick them, going out, hats on, into the harvest field with their tool. So where do we get this army of laborers, this 220,000 people who are saturating our city with the gospel? Well, first, we go into the churches. We've already mentioned that 98% of people in our churches aren't sharing. We believe it's simply because they lack either the competency or the confidence to share their faith, maybe both. And so what do they need? Well, really, they're going to need two things: vision to share their faith, and then the tools to get started. So we're providing that. You can see that in later training videos. There's a lot of great stuff out there. But going into the churches and just casting the vision to get to no place left, and then providing the tools to get started. Now, the other place that we can go to for these harvest laborers, or these disciples who make disciples, is among the lost. So we go out into the harvest field, and what do lost people need? Well, they need to hear the gospel, and then they need to be trained. So training on how to get started sharing their faith. So we believe in going to these two fishing pools, we will ultimately see a movement of people saturating their community with the good news of the gospel, and see a movement of disciples making disciples who make disciples, which ultimately gets to churches who are planting churches, and that is what will get us to no place left.